Let me ask you, it was the 10th anniversary of Mean Girls. And first of all, I basically have past, present, and future question, one of each about Lindsay Lohan. But I also have for you, I wanted to talk about this phenomenon of Mean Girls, man. It's a great movie. But, man, I never thought. I mean, I'm no offense. I'm wondering if you ever thought this, Mark. Would it take off like the way it took off?
No, not at all. I mean, we felt like we were getting away with something making the movie because the movie didn't cost much money. It cost only around $20 million being made for Paramount. You know, in studio movie budgets, that's super low. You know, and
right.
and remember they had other really monstrous movies they were making at the time that were, you know, taking up all their attention. And we were just this tiny movie that was shooting up in Toronto, and nobody really paid attention to us. And there was really nobody in it. I mean, Tina Fey was, you know, the Weekend Update lady on SNL,
right.
and Lindsay had been in Freaky Friday that I made, you know, but Freaky Friday had just come out when we were casting the movie. So, you know, it's kind of success. What helped her certainly and helped the movie, but it wasn't like Lindsay Lohan was a household name yet.
No,
and
no.
You know, and then there's all the people from the SNL cast. So we were just like sneaking in there, making this really cool, subversive, fun script, and you know, and pleased that nobody was really messing around with us. And Lorne, you know, probably visited the set 2 or 3 times, and he would take us all to dinner, and he wasn't up in our grill at all. He was just happy with the dailies and happy with how things were going. And so, you know, we all the way through, you know, editing the movie even, I remember the head of the studio at the time, Sherry Lansing, saw a cut of the movie, and it wasn't like it was testing you that well even.
Right.
It had, you know, people didn't know how to take it because it was had such a weird balancing of tones. So it wasn't the kind of movie that did great in test previews. But Sherry Lansing, to her credit, said, "I love this movie. This thing, you guys don't have to change a thing, and we know how to sell it." And lo and behold, she wasn't lying. You know, they went out there and they, you know, I remember we were even going into opening weekend. We thought it was tracking to do like $10 or $12 million opening weekend, and ended up doing 25.
Sure, yeah, that's huge. And Sherry Lansing, for those that don't know, she was the head at Paramount, and she was amazing. She's amazing as a person. It kind of blows my mind because in my mind I'm thinking, did Billy Friedkin see Mean Girls? That's what I want to know. Did he love it? Did he love it?
I've met him a couple times actually, and he's, you know, he definitely is a fan. So that's great.
Oh, that's great.
Know, but it's a weird thing where you know, as opposed to kind of getting deposited back to like, oh, this is a interesting early 21st century movie. Every crop of girls, as they come of age, discovers the movie and kind of loves it. You know, I remember Zoe Deutsch, you know, and from Vampire Academy, she and Sarah Hyland, they like talked about how, you know, they saw the movie and they were kids, you know, when they saw the movie, yet it made this huge impression on them, and they discovered it on video, and then, you know, and they can quote pretty much every line in the movie.
Right.
And meanwhile, like my, you know, that I talked to, you know, friends of mine have daughters who are in high school. Same thing right now. They're high school now. They love it. I have an 11-year-old daughter, and she goes to middle school, and she was, you know, she was saying like she went to school on you know, last Wednesday, and everybody was wearing pink, and she was being treated like royalty because she was the daughter of the director, you know. But the fact that like everybody was in this middle school, ages, you know, 11 through 13, whatever, they all were huge fans as well. That was definitely not what we expected, but I kind of like that it's become a little bit of an iconic touchdown. It's definitely surprising but cool.
Yeah, let me ask you about the two fan bases that like this movie. I would say 80 to 90% of the people really get the message of the movie, and they realize it's a movie about acceptance, and it's a movie about maturity, and it's a movie about all these great things. Then I'd say there's 10% of this audience, and I don't know if you're aware of this audience, but there's a 10% of this audience, and maybe you do because of the daughters and everyone you know, that want to be the plastics and live this lifestyle that they're like, you can't sit at this table. And you're probably shocked that this 30-year-old man knows all this Mean Girl stuff, but I know. And I loved it when it came out. I'll tell you what. What is your reaction though to the people that don't get the message of the film?
Right, who treat it like an instructional video as opposed to a like this is a PSA on how to be a plastic. Yeah, that's disturbing. You know,
have you heard about that though, or is that something that hasn't made its way in your bubble?
Well, certainly it's something where, like, people dress up for Halloween as the plastic.
Yeah, right.
Which I think is okay because that's maybe poking fun of it.
Sure.
I mean, the great thing is that we're living in a different age now, 10 years later, where, bullying is not kind of something that's swept under the rug anymore. I mean, even, certainly when I went to high school, it was like, it was very, very prominent and nobody gave a rat's ass about whether you were getting beat up at school. It was not talked about. And then it became talked about, and now it's become a thing where the cool kids are the nerds, and it's no longer, we no longer live in a world where it's tacitly accepted that you're going to get bullied in school because, people, and I think hopefully the movie has had some part in making that part of the cultural awareness. And so, and I think we definitely have progressed, and I feel like, my kids' school was really good about that stuff, and hopefully we've turned a corner.
I think people that get the message understand that if those girls kept going about doing what they were doing as the plastics, they were going to be 30, single, and very lonely and very broke, or they were going to marry some guy for his money, and that wasn't going to work out too well. I think people that are smart realize that it's the people that, and this is why I always say to kids that, I've gotten emails from like 16, 15-year-old gay kids from doing stuff on the show who've told me they've been bullied. And I remember the first one I got, like, blew my mind. I'm like, why the hell are they coming to me? I don't want to talk about this. This is too much for me to handle. But my whole thought was always, listen, it's the kids that got bullied in school that turn out really successful later in life. Just keep a positive attitude and keep moving forward. And I think if people take that message from your movie, I do think it sends a really positive message. And it's a great movie, Mean Girls. And I'm glad after 10 years, it's still just as big as it was.
Yeah. I mean, one of the messages in the movie that I think is important, too, that was important for me to get across, is to give people the sense that high school is finite. It ends.
Yeah.
And even after all the turmoil of their junior year, by senior year, everybody's kind of like changed cliques, and they're worrying about different things. But when you're in the middle of it, you can't see. You have blinders on. When you're young, you don't realize that, like, that all the problems that are crushing you are not going to crush you forever. And then there is an escape, and escape will eventually happen just through time. And I think if you can give that kind of peace of mind that, just by keeping your head down and surviving, you're eventually going to get to a better place. I think that's something that's hopefully a positive message within there too.
So the before, present, and after questions I have about Mean Girls relating to Lindsay Lohan is, when you were doing Freaky Friday and you said it hadn't even come out yet, I'm sure it was testing well. Or if it, how did you choose her for Mean Girls? Was it from working with her with Freaky Friday, or was it a coincidence that they teamed you guys up again?
Oh no, it was definitely, I was definitely involved in that. I mean, it was something where they came after me as a director for it, and when I just really read the screenplay and thought to myself, the last thing I possibly want to do is another movie set around the high school, where I hear locker doors slamming when we call background action, and I wanted to shoot myself. But then the script was so good, I couldn't ignore it. And when I kind of raised my hand saying I wanted to do it, Sherry Lansing demanded to see Freaky Friday, and she saw it and thought, oh my God, not only is Mark perfect for this, but this girl is amazing. We should get Lindsay too. But the interesting thing is at the time, I told Sherry, it's like, look, Lindsay's perfect for Regina George. Like she's so strong, such a big personality. She would love this. And I gave the screenplay to Lindsay. Lindsay also said, oh my God, I can't wait to play Regina. Like, this is going to be amazing. Like, this is such a great part. I'm dying to do this. But then we proceeded to try to find somebody to play Katie, and nobody was good enough. Nobody was strong enough.
So was
to make
that?
us think
Did you ever?
Kind of like they could dominate Lindsay.
Did you ever try,
and
Mark? Did you ever try switching with Rachel McAdams as Katie? Was that ever an option?
Interesting enough, during this time period, Rachel McAdams came in and read for Katie, and she gave an amazing reading. And actually, I take credit for this because I remember I told her this in the room. I said, I think you are a movie star, and I think you're too old to be playing Katie. You're not right for this. I think she was 23 or 24 at the time.
Yeah.
And she just didn't seem right as like the ingenue anymore. I said you're really amazing to watch. And it's too bad this is not right for you. But so anyway, but then over time we said, okay, what if, and Sherry Lansing had to kind of sit me down and give me a come to Jesus speech to say, look, like Freaky Friday has become a really big hit. People love Lindsay. We just have to bite the bullet, and you're going to have to make her work as Katie as the lead. And I said, yeah, okay, let's do it. And then we proceeded to try to find Regina, and that's when we brought Rachel back into the mix, and she broke out her blonde wig from The Notebook and came in to test against Lindsay. And the interesting thing is that the person who came in number 2 in our testing for playing Regina George was none other than Amanda Seyfried.
Yeah, right.
Who was amazing as Regina. She played it kind of like in this cool, spooky, Machiavellian way. It was very different than the way that Rachel played, but also really interesting, and we loved her. But there was something about Rachel and Lindsay where, because Rachel's a bit older and very, very composed, Lindsay was kind of intimidated around her in the room. And so that feeling I had of almost before they started to read of Lindsay being a little bit, kind of in awe of Rachel, or just kind of like, she a little bit taken aback by her. I thought that's going to be perfect. And then Lorne Michaels, I think, was the one who had the inspiration later, because we were about to cast another actress who's become quite well known. I'm not going to say her name, but basically she for the role that Amanda did playing for Karen. But then Lauren said to me one day, what about the dumb girl? You think Amanda Seyfried could play the dumb girl? And so we brought her back in again, and we read her as Karen, and she was genius, and that was that was kind of historic for her because she'd never really done anything except for like a guest spot on a soap opera.
Right, that was
so
big.
This was really her first movie. And then she's gone on to become quite a star herself,
I got to tell you, in 190 episodes of this show, that is the best description I've ever heard of the casting process in Hollywood, so I appreciate that. That was really good. No, it was really detailed and really good. I'm really happy with that. That was great for me. Let me ask you then, about the present here, where it's What happened during Mean Girls? Did anything happen at all that you could tell Lindsay was going in a different direction? The reason I ask you this question is, one, you guys didn't work together again after this, and that could be just pure coincidence, not the right project. That happens all the time. But was there anything you could sense that she was having troubles at that time?
She wasn't having troubles, per se. I mean, she was still quite young. Remember, she was a minor at the time. And
sure.
She was 16 years old when she did Freaky Friday. She was 17 when we did Mean Girls. I think the difference was really in her kind of supervision. I mean, she did Freaky Friday, her parents were there. Her mother was on set every day. She had, her family, her younger siblings were with her. She was, she was a minor, and she really was a minor. I mean, she would go to school. And when we weren't shooting her, we had very limitations of hours that we could work with her. When we got around to Mean Girls, it had changed to the point where she didn't have her family around. Instead, she had a 21-year-old assistant who was acting as her guardian. And suddenly it was no longer like she was a kid. I mean, she was somebody who basically wanted to go out and party in Toronto when she wasn't shooting. We still had to kind of get her wrapped by a certain time. We still had to obey the minor's hours, but she was no longer kind of living the life of a kid. Instead she was like, you have to wrap me because I've reached my hours. But then the moment she wrapped, she would be like getting dressed to go out to the club.
That's what we call having your cake and eating it too. Both, it's the best of both worlds, right there.
I remember vividly, like having, when we were, we rushed to get her wrapped by her miner's hours, and then we were doing like night shooting, like trying to get some like pickup shots, and we drove past her, kind of like going out clubbing, and we were like, she's waving to us, hey, we're like, yay, we're still working. But she the fact is, when she was on set, she had a great work ethic.
Yeah, sure.
She was still very, very talented, and when she was actually kind of on her mark and in front of me, she was just really easy to work with, and then very, very kind of quick to respond to direction. And but I could see that she definitely was a kid who had been robbed of her childhood, and was excited to go out and play, and was excited that she didn't have supervision and she could kind of party a little bit. But then again, I did crazy, stupid stuff. The TMZ was not waiting outside my dorm room my freshman year of college.
No, right.
If so, it would have been incredibly embarrassing for me.
No,
so,
but
she went through all that stuff, but she hasn't broken out of it though, and that's the sad thing.
Right, and I hear that. I hear that,
yeah.
and I get it, and that's the reason people give all the time. And by the way, it's a very legitimate reason. You can look at Bieber and say the same thing, and why he acts the way he acts. But then, how do you explain guys like Justin Timberlake and like Rachel McAdams, who you worked with on Mean Girls, who were also young, maybe not as young as Justin was, but Rachel wasn't as young as Lindsay, I don't think, when she started. But these are young people that didn't really have those kind of problems. What's the difference? What do you think it is? It's influence?
I don't want to cast stones, but it's obviously the parents. You think about, like, you come from a certain kind of family and a certain kind of, supervision and, in your life. You behave a different way.
Yeah.
And clearly that was not something that was kind of imposed on her or, kind of instilled in her in a way that was going to be helpful for the rest of her life, and there's many cases of people who go from being child stars to being successful. Natalie Portman, I'm sure she's got a great support from her family, she ends up getting a degree from Yale, I think, right? But she or Harvard, I'm not sure. But even so, it's like, It's not like it's not doable. It's just hard. The temptations are there. And unless you have somebody to really kind of steer you to the path of righteousness, it's very easy to go astray.
No, that's true. For every Natalie Portman, you got two Macaulay Culkins. That's absolutely true.
He's a great kid.
No, I mean it's just true.